The Search Podcast USA Edition series is sponsored by Ascen. Ascen is a top employer of record in North America that exclusively helps staffing and recruitment agencies hire contractors compliantly throughout the US and Canada. Ascen's all-in-one white-label platform handles onboarding, timesheets, payroll, benefits, insurance, invoicing, and optional financing so you can grow quickly in the US and Canada. Start growing your staffing agency in the US today with Ascen. Visit us at ascen.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Search Podcast. I'm Elliott Manning, the Managing Director of Cayman Recruitment Group. We are a rec-to-rec and staffing solution provider to the industry globally. But on the podcast itself, still continuing the same subject matter around the US market. It's been a conversational point for years now. It's still one of the biggest talking points in the recruitment marketplace with incredible opportunity. And when you look at the economy now, you can see that the difference of how successful firms are in the US to the UK and Europe right now. I mean, there's multiple reasons that we've gone through in every episode, but different approach this week's episode. Working with someone I know very well, and wanted to learn a bit more about his story around his success in New York and his build out of a business. But I'll let you take an introduction of yourself.
Thanks, Elliot. Appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on. I'm Logan Pudalov. I oversee the U.S. business at Quantum Technology. We've been in business for 56 years. We have 4 offices across the U.S. and Canada. As you mentioned, I live here in New York City. I actually grew up in Boulder, Colorado, and started my recruitment career in Seattle, Washington. So I've been sort of familiar with a few different markets.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride. It's been a learning experience, a lot of ways building in New York. It's similar to as I sort of expected, and also very different in certain ways.
Yeah, awesome. Tell us a little bit more about Quantum and the background. I mean, I know obviously they're a Canadian-based business, and then they brought you in to help them with this launch in New York and help them build out the North American market. Is that right?
Yeah, and I have to say, Quantum's story is very unique, and it was a big reason why I felt quite good about building this out for them. They used to have an office in New York City, sort of pre 9/11. They had over 50 recruiters in that office.
Wow.
And so, after 9/11 disrupted a lot of the business, they moved operations back to Canada, sort of maintained some of their US clients. But there was this real aspiration to sort of like get back into New York. And I think where it was a bit different with this opportunity, like a lot of firms, obviously some in the UK, some in other countries, they have that excitement and aspiration and commitment to sort of growing in New York, but they don't have the history that sort of Quantum had to build what used to be.
No, I mean, look, it's an easier sell because they're on the right side of the pond, if you call it that, and it makes it a lot more of an appeal to a lot of people that they've got that established background. I guess, like a lot of companies, when I talk to them, Logan, they're always questioning why should I be in New York? It's expensive. Why would we want to set up there? We can go to Texas, we can be in Florida, we can be in North Carolina. But how good is it to be in New York, and what difference do you believe it's kind of made to have the setup over there to continue this journey?
Yeah, I think New York's great for many reasons, and I think it's a good market to build in it, whether you're in like the insurance and banking industry doing like high volume contract, or if you're sort of working with those like early stage startups. I think the market is a bit different from San Fran or like Los Angeles, where like there's a ton of really, really good talent.
Yeah.
New York has some great talent, but there seems to be more really great companies looking for talent than sort of San Fran, LA, where the talent seems to like run the show over there.
Yeah. And do you think it depends on, like, again, like you said, around the markets, like, could you still do the same thing if you were located, like you guys have got other locations, like if you're in, in another state, whichever one it may well be?
Yeah, I think we're sort of exploring building remotely and in New York
Yeah.
at the same time, which is, on the surface sounds like a wild thing, but after, post COVID, seeing everyone be successful working remotely, I've been remote nearly my entire career. It is sort of a newer model that I think works, having sort of like a smaller HQ in a specific city, and then, lots of folks sort of in surrounding areas. And it's
Yeah.
something we've been like exploring.
Fine. And in terms of what you guys specialize in and the market focus, I mean, like what, 5, 10 years ago, it was all about enterprise clients, bringing on large MSPs, bringing on bigger outfits of loving to like to work with Microsoft or Apple or Dell or whatever it may well be. Now it's transitioned to like the startup, venture capital series sort of funded businesses. Is that, the direction you guys have gone in, like as a new sort of business into the US again?
Yeah, the majority of our relationships are, early stage startups. Obviously, there was the big AI boom,
Mm.
which, we're working with many of those companies, but we haven't sort of limited ourselves in that way. I mean, we believe in niche recruitment. We sort of have very like tailored specific um, industries and subsets of industries that we focus on, but we actually have had quite a bit of success in like renewable energy. So it's really about just sort of positioning the team in areas that, we feel people are strongest in and that we can have success in.
Absolutely fine. So what's the plans now? Like where are you going with the team, the business? Like how good has this year been for you? And where are you guys looking to go in 2026?
Yeah, so we moved into our new office last week, which was very exciting for us.
Yeah.
This is our second office in Flatiron. From a business standpoint, things are great as far as, we have like lots of great partners, and, we're doing lots of deals, and, things are flowing. The market's hot. It's been particularly challenging to hire in general, just being in sort of New York and the
Yeah.
market there. And that's kind of the focus going into 2026 is, now we have the infrastructure. How do we really kind of scale up from the team that we have currently?
Yeah. I did a post, I think it was last week, around the biggest challenge is the 360 recruitment element. And I said to a lot of founders, like being in New York, you've got more opportunity for talent, you've got more competitors to go and take people from, but it doesn't make it any easier. It makes it sometimes a lot more challenging because of how competitive it may well be. But that's why a lot of firms like what you guys have done have opened the doors to other locations to get the talent that you need in your business, right? But you've got to kind of be careful sometimes how you do that at the speed that you want to do it so you keep it under control. But I mean, look, the tech 360 recruitment market in New York is really, really tough to hire.
Definitely, definitely. I think there's probably many different reasons why that is, and I'm sure you kind of are well versed on some of them. Obviously, cost of living in New York is a
Yeah.
challenge for folks. Obviously, even if you look at something as like the taxes that people are getting charged in New York versus like other states, like Florida, for example, it's if you're a top biller and you value freedom and flexibility and sort of what you're taking home at the end of the day, that seems to be where people are gravitating. And I
Yeah.
think to your point, Elliot, it's about sort of being flexible and hiring in new locations, but also being quite specific and careful about who you bring on. Because
Yeah.
I like to say to some of the folks I meet is, freedom and flexibility is an amazing thing for the right person, but it's also really, really bad for the
Yeah.
wrong person.
What do you think, I guess, like, is going into next year and obviously the trajectory that you guys are on, what do you think you guys are doing really well with and in to kind of see the success that you're seeing? Have you had to do something different in your offerings and how you present yourself as a business and, going into a new space, obviously that everyone's trying to attack in your market? Is there something that I mean, without sharing all the secrets for anyone listening, obviously, is there anything in particular how you hold yourself really strong and accountable for?
Yeah, I think, early on over the last kind of year and a half to 2 years of building this, like we really have had like a couple, like we've had a lot of success stories, but there's like two or three that I could point to that are really like big time success stories. And I think what we've done quite well is really just try to rally behind those specific stories, not just in a sense of helping build those companies up more and more, but also sort of doubling down in the specific market they're in. And like, I don't mean, fintech company to fintech, but, far more narrow, far more specific, and really just focusing on being kind of the main go-to recruiter within a very niche subset.
Yeah. Do you do you change, I suppose, like the offering that you provide to clients? Like, are you kind of going with the same, is it a mix of like contingent to project MSP to like retained?
Yeah, we have a mix of retained and contingent business. We
Yeah.
don't really do the MSP stuff too much. We don't have a ton of contract business at the moment. A lot of what we're doing is sort of like high salary perm.
Yeah.
Um, I think like for us, like retainers are great, but I think we value the communication, the commitment to hire, the getting to the final result more than anything else. So I
Yeah.
think including the percentage, right? I think we would way rather work with an amazing business that wants to hire 20, 30 people at a lower percentage than one, that we have sort of at this very high percentage. And, we go through all these headaches trying to get to some kind of finish line.
Absolutely fine. You were talking about, and I know I'm jumping back to this question, but like this subject we spoke about the 360 recruiters and what you look for those listening and for the recruitment market to understand, like what does it take to be successful at Quantum QTR with being a 360 recruiter? What is it more of the personality of the person? Is it the skill set, or is it everything? What identifies as a good candidate for you?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And we really need folks who are self-driven. And I think that's what a lot of people would say, but it's even more important in our business, given, sort of treat this as like a startup within a much, wider company. And, when you're looking at a business that's a startup, it's just important that everyone, is committed to the same goal. And, the folks that we sort of have to continually uh, point in a certain direction and go through an email this that we're just not the right shop for them, right? We need
Yeah.
folks who are like very self-driven, who if they want to they want to get better, they're coming forward asking how, bringing new ideas and strategies. And I think as we grow, we mature, we become a bigger business, that can evolve and change, and we can sort of take on some different personalities, but that's very much sort of like what we're looking for at the moment.
Do you have headcount growth plans for 26 that you know at the moment across whether it's in New York or stateside, like in general, or?
Yeah, so right now we're a team of four. We're hoping to be in that sort of like 8 to 12 range by the end of the year next year. At the end of the day, though, it's just more important about bringing in kind of the right personalities and the right
Yeah.
people. I would way rather get to like 7 or 8 with like all the great folks adding value to the culture and et cetera, than be at 12 and have some bad apples and problems in front of us.
Yeah. Have you seen a lot of that? I mean, have you kind of noticed anything in particular around, without, I suppose, pinpointing anything to stand out? Is there any real nuances and challenges that you've seen when it comes to hiring in the US from
Yeah,
before?
yeah. I think, hiring in the US, there's plenty of challenges, and then definitely in New York City. There's a lot of individuals in New York City who work in New York City, but they live in New Jersey, they live in Connecticut, they live far away. So just having to, find someone who's like really committed to commuting and being part of the culture and being part of the office has been a challenge. I think there's a lot of folks out there too who do interview really well. So it's hard to, figure out how to weed out the ones who interview well, but, really don't produce. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, unfortunately we see that a lot in our market because we are the ones trying to provide them all the time. So, you have to go through quite a lot of people to get the right ones, and it's tough. In terms of like, I guess any advice or suggestions for those expanding their businesses out in the US, and particularly in New York, is there any real big positives and plus kind of like plus points for them doing it there against doing it anywhere else that you would recommend or suggest?
Yeah, yeah. I think yes, it's harder to find the right people in New York, but I think that when you do find the right people, you get it right. New York is full of people who are really self-driven, motivated, have a lot of the traits that you want in a great recruiter. Just by nature. The city's
Yeah.
extremely expensive. It moves fast. The market's quick. And so the ones who sort of like are in it and in it for the long run are going to be, key pivotal points of your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you've explained your plans for the new year and what you're expecting to see on headcount growth. Do you expect to see any major changes? Last kind of point of this conversation, like around the market and what you guys are trying to achieve and what you're going to do. Are you going to go into the contractor space at some point?
Yes, yeah, we would love to sort of get into the contract space. I think it's just a matter of finding the right person to like kick that off. I think the real next phase of this is yes, continue to currently make a hire or two in New York, but also expanding to these nearby cities and figuring out how okay we're expanding to these nearby cities, we're hiring remotely, but how do we sort of build the culture within the team in that sort of infrastructure? And I think that that will be the biggest challenge and something to look forward to in general in kind of the new year.
Absolutely. Logan, honestly, I really appreciate you jumping on this with me and sharing these insights. You guys have done incredible things, and I have been asked, by certain businesses a lot about like what are these guys up to? Like, they're kind of making a good mark in the market. So you're definitely putting out the right signals. But if there's any recruiters in the market that are listening to this and they're looking for an opportunity in a 360 capacity, or maybe they're solid as a 180 like intact, like just feel free to reach out to Logan directly if you want. Feel free to ask me any questions that you have, and we'll share this across all platforms, so it's accessible for everybody to communicate. But again, Logan, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck with everything, and congrats on all the success you've had in the last year with the business as well.
Thanks, Elliot. Thanks for having me on. Great to see
Pleasure.
you.